And we will back up record here, just in case. New. To call this referencing full-time part 2. Save. Okay, start. We can turn off the lights so we can see better. So yesterday I showed you how to reference. You weren't here, Buyani, but you can watch the video.
Okay, so the office was long.
At what time?
By that time.
Oh, you should have just knocked because we were.
I thought maybe you are alone inside.
No, we were all in here. We were dodging the people so that we could have class, and we had class. But you can just watch the video. So let's close. So we went through yesterday referencing. We went through the quick guide to Harvard, this document, and I went through all the different sources, the different types of sources, so how to in-text reference from books to journals. And we went through the official guide to referencing, where, and as I said, and this takes you through every different form. It's 99% the same as the other. There's just slight little differences that I highlight. So it's books, conference papers, it takes you through everything, and it's in quite a nice format. You know, it shows you nicely how it's in-text referenced and how it goes in the reference list. Okay. So now we want to give you practical experience to how to reference. And I'll show you more about Google Forms. It's a shortcut as to you can get various sources of Google Forms that you just need to convert a bit to get into CPUT format. So let's just show you the exercises. I'm not going to make you do them in class, but what I did was I gave an example. And I've emailed this to you guys as well. So we don't want to update this. So what I said here is, and you can practice your referencing, is write a brief paragraph to show how you correctly in-text reference by using each of the 6 sources below. Construct a reference list then based on the paragraph. So you just need to write a piece of nonsense. So yeah, I've given you a book and I've given you a few words from the book. Okay, so that, make it bigger. A few words, personality component. You could just take a few words so that you could in-text reference. So I've given you all the information. It has consumer behavior is the title of the book. The author's Jim Blythe. The publisher's Thomson. It was published in 2008. Yeah, Thomson's the publisher. And where is this? It's in London. You see, so you've got everything you need to do the reference list. Then I've given you a journal. So the name of the journal is Journal of Interactive Marketing. And here it says it again. It's volume 26, and its page numbers 198 to 208. Here's the title of the journal article, and these are the 3 authors. Okay. And then I gave you 2 lines from the article, so you could just write something. Then I gave you an internet source published in 2009. This 29th of September is a red herring. You don't use the date of when something was published. But we said it was accessed today. You do use the date of when you accessed it. You only use the year of when it was published. It's the title of the article is Stretching Your Marketing Budget. There's the URL that you need. If you click on this, it's going to take you to this article, and I give you the author, Chris Moordeck. Then I give you another source, also published in 2009. As I say, you ignore this 25th of August, assuming you accessed it today. The title of the article, the author, and a bit of the text. Then I've given you a newspaper source, the title of the article. Ruth Zanker argues, so that would be the author. So often you have to read the article to know who the author is. It was in the Times on Monday, January 18, page 17, and then a personal interview with the head of department, who's now Dr. Kushles Wakala, on the 1st of Feb. The interview was on D6 campus and was about this. So from this, I've given you everything you need. I said, write a brief paragraph to show how you'd index reference. So I've done this for you, just to show you how referencing works. So I said, and I gave you, so if you want to practice. So I said, this is the book, Blythe, 2008-79. So it's the surname, the year, and the page number. Stated that personality consists of a number of traits. I just took a bit of the text, that I gave you. This paragraph doesn't make any sense, but it's just to show you how to reference. But consumer socialization is significant. So this is the journal on Wang et al. So when there's 3 or more authors I showed you yesterday, you use et al. Full stop. Okay. So Wang et al, comma, the year, colon, the full page range. Okay, that was the journal article. If we started the sentence with this, say we said full stop, and we said Wang et al, we dropped this comma, and instead of the comma, we put a bracket. Stated. You see? So Wang et al, the year and the page number. You see how it differs? Okay, so take very careful of et al. People make many mistakes. So et al means and others. Okay, so when you have 3 or more authors, you immediately use et al. You never list all the authors here, but in your reference list, you'll list all 3 authors. Okay, it's important to assume you have little budget. Murdek 29B. And then, but relationship is about 29A. How did we come to this A and B? I also showed them yesterday. Is that when there's the same author in the same year, if we just had 2009 and 2009, would you not think that this is from one article? Yes, but because of that, when you do the reference for them, you say Murdek 2009, the one article was Getting a ROI Relationship Marketing. You give the URL and you give the date. This one's also Murdek 2009, right? So how do we differentiate between them? Where does it differ for the first place? So 2009, 2009. So if this is the same, this is the same, but where does it differ? Yeah. This is Getting a Good, it starts with a G, and this is Stretching Your Budget. So in your reference list, if you sorted this, how would this go alphabetically? G would become before S. So therefore, this would come first in the reference list, and this would come second. So therefore, this would be A, and this would be B. But it's only if it's in the same year and it's the same author or authors. If this was 2010, would we need the A and B? No, because one's 29, one's 2010. But because this is 2009, in the text, if you have 2009 and 2009, you're going to think this is one author. Whereas actually this comes from the B and this comes from the A. Now you can tell that this source, B, comes from year and the A comes from year. You see, but it's not going to be very often that you have the same author, okay, with the same year. Usually it's different, but if you do, that's how you do it. And then Zwakala felt that, blah, blah, blah. So you see how I've referenced everything. Then you do your reference list alphabetically. So this is the book, the author, the year, the title of the book goes in italics because it's published. Where it was published, you give the city, not the country, colon, you give the publisher. The website, Murdek 2009, the title is in italics, you give the full URL. So if I click on this URL, it takes me to the website. And then we said it was accessed today. So today is 21 February. Oh, and I just want to show you something. You see what it did? It hyperlinked that 21. That's wrong. It mustn't hyperlink it. So you just go there and you click backspace, or all I do is you just delete that, and then you just go back there and you go 21. Now it's going to hyperlink it again. You just click undo. See, it mustn't hyperlink that 21. Then I'll mark that as an error. But the new referencing documents that I showed you actually say, remove the underline, make it black, don't hyperlink it, just give it like that. So if it hyperlinks like this, then, well, I'll show you the next one, just remove it. So, and here's the next one, Moerdijk 29, and again, we would just have the same date. If you ask, why do you give the date it was accessed? Well, if someone looks at this, your piece that you wrote 2 years later, and now they click on the hyperlink and it doesn't work anymore. The reason it doesn't work is because it's 2 years later, then they can see, oh, you accessed it then, it's 2 years later. It probably, that's why. So you're telling people when you accessed it so that if they access it later and it doesn't work, then they know why. But if I click this link now and it doesn't work, then you've made a mistake. You know, the hyperlink is not correct. Then the journal article I showed you, so 3 authors, Wang, comma, X, full stop. To separate authors, you use a comma, U, comma, full stop. There's no comma, though, before the and, way, Y, full stop, the year, the title of the journal article, the journal in italics, the volume, there was no issue, colon, the page numbers, full stop. That's how journal's done. And the newspaper, author, year, title of article, the newspaper in italics, colon, the page number, comma, January the 18th, or you could say 18 Jan, whichever way of order. And then the interviews with Carla 2024 interview with CPT HAD on the 1st of Feb, Cape Town. That's how you reference, you see. So when you write, each source is in-text reference. And even if you in-text reference Blythe again, so say, although Blythe, oops, put it here, Blythe and Zwakala Veld. Blythe, although you've in-text referenced it twice, it actually only goes in the reference list once. So if you in-text reference something 100 times, it still only goes in the reference list once. But each source that you in-text referenced must appear. If you decided and you didn't use Moerdijk 2029 and it's not in-text referenced, then immediately you would have to say, I didn't use that source, so delete. That becomes 29, and that becomes 29. You see, so it must match. So when I read your practical one and I see, oh, you've got, so some students do this. I'll tell you what they do. Let's just go to some article that I wrote somewhere. So let's just go to this one. For some students, when they write, they now steal some text and they say, okay, we'll take this text. And we go copy. And they've taken it from this article that I wrote, Duffert 2017. And then put this text in here. And Jen next, just say, and they paraphrase this, have adopted. And now they've left these references in that they've stolen from that article, right? Used. You can use it. And then what do? They forget that these sources that they've taken from you, they need to firstly adapt it to CPT. So that and becomes and that and because it's in brackets, so it must be an and. So they've taken these 3 sources, right? So you always quote the original author. I wouldn't take all of them to say, oh, these are old sources, so we won't use this one. We'll use these 2, and then you took it from my article, so you include the source you took it from as well, 2017, right? So now they took these sources from that article, and then they reference the article, they reference this article, right? So they took it from Duffert 2017. So as I say, a quick way to get this reference is through Google Scholar for journal articles. We go in here, we go into Google Scholar. And you paste it. Then there it finds my article. Then you can click Cite. Here it gives you the reference under Harvard, but not exactly the same as our style. So you take the source copy, and now you go into the reference list, you add this, right? Dufford R, you need to remove this comma to convert it. I showed them yesterday. You need to put this in italics, comma, that's all correct. You need to go colon. See, now it's correct. See how you convert it. So you've referenced this article, but what about these two that you've stolen from the Navigate? You need to add those in your reference list, don't you? So what you have to do then is oh, I see it did something funny. It's Mackenzie. Yeah. So these two sources, you've actually got to then go to the end of the journal article and see. Okay. Look for, here's Mackenzie. It was an internet site. So you've got to take this source because now you've in-text referenced it. And you've also got to put it in. You can take it from the journal, but now you see they use a different format. Look at their format. Access 3rd of July. Does this source still exist? You've got to check. You see, that's why we give the date. This source is now like nearly 10 years old. So you copy and paste this in. Firstly, you check, oh, does this source still exist? Paste it in. Does it still exist? See, not found because it was 8 years ago. So can you use that source now? No, because it doesn't exist anymore. So delete, and you can't use that source, right? The other source you use, James and Levin. So you go and look in the reference list, James and Levin. This is also in, no, it wasn't. This is the Sunday Times article. So, of course, I will know that you've taken that from somewhere if it's Sunday Times, because I know you don't read newspapers. But Sunday Times, so now you've got to convert it, James and Levin, that must become and, you know, you've got to remove the brackets because we don't use that style, full stop. There's no, it's not in italics. We go full stop. We say Sunday Times. Gen Next is the source 2015. CPUT, we use a colon here. We say page 15. And there is no date, so we say May, and then you've converted that to a CPUT source, and that's how we look at, and then you've in-text referenced that. Right, so if you ever take sources from other sources, you've got to look in their references, find it, check that it's correct, the information, because often people get their references wrong. And so you need to go to the original source, but this is a newspaper, you can't. Okay. So that's just practically, I want to show you other things. So let's don't save this. So I've given you two other examples to work through. So let's go to general and general documents. So giving you another activity. You see, again, write a paragraph. And then I've given you a paragraph from a book and then some information about the book. You know, I've given you an interview. I've given you a newspaper with no author's name. I've given you a journal article, the International Journal. I've given you a website and another website published in the same year. And then again, I've shown you this is how you can reference. And then I've showed you if you combine multiple references, if you combine, then this is how you reference. chronological 2001, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2024. And if it's in the same year, it goes alphabetical, De Silva A, De Silva B. If that was 2011, Anon was you, then that would go there. So chronological for many sources. I showed that yesterday. And then I showed you what the reference list would look like, alphabetical, and how you would reference each source. And then I gave another example. 1.2. Same story from a book, Balch and Balcher older edition, an interview, an article from a magazine, a newspaper article, and then a website link. And again, I show you, this is how you would reference it. If you use multiple in-text referencing, this is what it looks like, and the reference list. So those are exercises you can practice. Close current tab, close current tab. Now I want to just show you what I do, specifically for practical 1, how I gather information. And I just want to look, I go to YouTube article, not YouTube articles. Do I have it here? Oh, let's maybe go here. YouTube. And let's just see how I, gather research, which one I want. Okay. Yes, this is what I do. Hussein. Yeah, this is what I want to show you. And then at the end, yeah. So when I'm doing research and I'm writing on something, so I wrote an article on YouTube, word of mouth, E1, right? And I had different titles or whatever. Let's not update this now. So you've got to do, never mind about the definitions, you've got to write an introduction, or you've got to write the background to research problem. Right, that's your first part. That's your first part, right, in practical 1. And in that practical 1, let's just go to practical 1, because it's a reference in exercise that you've got to find the sources. So if I go here and I go to practical 1 essay template, see here's your title. So now I'm showed you how to reference. So in this background to you've got 4 sections, right? Overview, topic importance, collective research gaps, and additional research mandate. And these are the articles you attach, the first page I've showed you. So the first section is provide an overview of background information that includes social media advertising cohort, and the theoretical models I've given. Right. So this information you will find both on the internet and in journal articles. The second one is, why is this topic important? So you need to do a search in SABINet to see what research has been done in South Africa and globally. And so you can search others. You need to show that it's fast growing. So this you'll get in the internet and journal articles, and that young people use social media. This you'll get in the internet and journal articles, right? So these 2 sections actually aren't difficult, because every source you find will give you information. But when you get to the research gaps and the mandate for further research, this takes a bit more time, and this you're only going to get from journal articles and theses. And I said that you need to just look at the article and see, okay, what country is it conducted in? Who are the people it surveys? What interests, sample sizes, different platforms, theoretical frameworks, what they use? That you can mostly get from the abstract. And to get the mandate where they say more research needs to be conducted, You get this from the introduction and limitations. The first two sections, I don't think you'll struggle. I've showed you that. But the research gaps and the mandate for more research is difficult. So what I do is when I read each journal article and I read the introduction and I extract information out of it and I rewrite it immediately and I in-text reference it. And here you can see his gaps. And so I extract information and then I create the reference immediately. And you can see I've used two different forms because I'll submit into different journals. So this is the CPUT style, whereas this is the Emerald style, you see? But you would use the CPU. So immediately I take information out and I create the references, whether I use them or not. And you can see, okay, there's a lot of references. And then like I showed you, I summarize it immediately. Okay, so the authors, the methodology, and you can add a fourth column called research gaps, but instead of adding the fourth column, I grouped this information already. You see, because you could add a fourth column, but I just want to go down first. So when you get each article, when I summarize this method, and I also said to you that you could have a question on their aims, their objectives. Why do I put US students and Facebook here? Can you use this for your section 3? Yes, you can say this author Akana conducted a study in the US. And then you can find other studies. This was also in the US, and this was in the US and Canada, and this was in the UK, and this was in India, the US, and this was in, you see, all the articles I've summarized, US. So you could say, and I'll show you what I do, because in this section, it says additional research should be conducted in different countries. So you could say, and let's just go up here. I want to show you how important it is to summarize, so extract this information, this methodology, like I showed you then. If we go to the gaps in research, this is obviously an unrelated topic to what you're doing. So yeah, look at all these authors, right? How many studies is that? 20 studies propose that additional research should be conducted in other countries. You see, but this is different. Here we say such and such revealed that E-related. Okay, so this would be a mandate for more research. But in this instance, if you're not looking at the introduction and you're just looking at their authors, you would say all of these authors conducted research in the US and Western European countries, you know. So we're looking at first world versus third world, developed versus developing countries. So if you go, one thing you can use Wikipedia is because what's South Africa? A developing country. What's Europe and America? A developed. So what I always do is I just go to get a list of the countries. You don't reference this because you're just looking. So you go Wikipedia. So one thing I use it for, developed versus developing countries. Should give you, see here, it gives you a list of all the developing countries in the world, right? And so that's developing countries. You see, so you take this list, now you can see we on this list, South Africa, right? But most research takes place where? In developed countries, right? So if you go down here they give the developed countries, Sweden, Norway, you'll find the United States, all of these countries, not as many. So a third of the world's countries are developed, the other 2/3 is developing. So you can get this list from here. But then when you write this up, your first practical is you can look and say these studies, let's just say, conducted research on social media advertising in the US. And you can say IEA developed country. And you could say, and these inquiries, you don't want to use the same word, considered and not these inquiries, and we can say, we'll just take this out, copy, and benefit what a developing country, we'll just make that separate, investigated social media advertising in Europe, in European, or we can say Western, because Eastern Europe, Russia, and that, they're not all developed countries. Investigated social media in European countries, right? And then you can say other studies in other developed nations on social media advertising. Yeah, I'll just say studies in other studies, we'll just say were conducted in other developed countries. So I just went to Wikipedia, and then you would open brackets as a different form of referencing. And then you see you'd have to change this if we put it in brackets, because that would be and, comma. You see how it changes when it's not in brackets. Et al is not in italics anymore, so there'll be a comma there. Delete that. You see how you'd have to change it, right? Right in there. So now you've just from your summaries. So we just full stop this. So we've said, I won't fix the rest. So these studies were conducted on social media advertising in US, a developed country. These studies investigated social media in Western European countries. You could say also developed countries, right? And studies were conducted in other developed nations. So this is around the world. If you look at the list, you know, if you look at the Wikipedia list, then okay, we won't go back there. Then right. And then so those are the others. So all the articles you summarize, you're going to put the country it in. So this is not reading what they've said, you're just seeing which country was conducted. Then you can say, therefore, there is an additional need for research in developing nations such as South Africa on social media advertising. Do you see what I've done? So that is section 3. Is just by reading the abstracts, each article you summarize, and you include this type of information, all of their methodology, and obviously what it was on, and you summarize it in a table like this. Although I showed you, remember, I showed you if I go to general documents and I go to, no, I need to go to this one, and we need to go to this research proposal guidelines. I showed you that each article you should summarize like this. The author names, the aims and objectives that relate to your study, the methodologies, the country, was a quantitative, a survey, how many participants, who were the respondents, what the main findings were that related to the constructs you're looking at, okay, which is, you know, information, entertainment, irritability, advertising value, perceived ease of use, perceived usefulness, and intention of purchase. So what are the, and then the research gaps. Now these gaps are for the fourth section. So this information you're using for the third part of this prac, which is this prac here, the research gaps. So you're just looking at where the study was conducted, who did they survey, what are their sample sizes, and you're including that in your summary here so that when you write, let's go up here, just do an undo so I get there. Then this is how you would, therefore, there's a need for additional in developing nations such as South Africa. So this is how you would write it up for the third section, each of these, you see. So just from your summary, you just extract it and you use multiple references. So you see how many sources you can have. If you summarize 50 articles, you can have big, but you're going to have to read. You may not be able to use all of it because you won't have space. So you do the same. You can say the following studies were conducted, and then I'll just show you some other examples of research gaps. So this is different, where these authors reveal that e-purchase related studies conducted in the US, where there's few studies here. It's the same type of thing. These studies indicate that student samples reduce the generalization. So also what's important in your summaries here is you tick generation Z and Y, but were they students or were they the general population? So if they're using students, you can say, well, you are using students, but students kind of reduce the generalization of the data. In other words, it's a student is different. An 18-year-old student is different from a working 18-year-old. Is different from an 18-year-old who's still in school. You see what I'm saying? So it's best to have a general, okay, but we won't go down that lane. And also you can say like surveys. So you can say the following studies did qualitative research on social media, whereas this study is doing quantitative research. And so you need to, when you summarize, let's go back to see what other gaps. These studies said that further, social media's diverse characteristics. I'm just seeing, so all gaps I've written it up already. And these gaps, and I've already written the reference lists, so whatever I use, and I've already written up the findings and all of these things I can use, okay, for this one specific section, research gaps. So they don't need to state that more research is needed. You just need to see where they've conducted it, who it was conducted about. Whereas the fourth section is a mandate. So this is where you read the introduction and future, where they say, so yeah, you see it was in the US. So if it's in the US, you can use it here. But if they actually say more research needs to be conducted, then it goes in the fourth section of this. And so if I go to this example of mine, so here they said, did it a report that has an influence? Okay, gaps, few studies. So these guys, Ahmed suggests that larger sample sizes should be conducting research. So some of the studies you read in the introduction and research gaps will say larger sample sizes should be used. So therefore, in that section, you would say larger samples will be used. And then you can say, therefore, this study will use a large sample size to fulfill this gap. So this goes, these guys, okay, we'll change. These guys revealed that E-related in the US were mostly conducted there, whereas few studies were conducted in developing countries. So these guys stated this. It's not you looking that it was in America. They physically stated that most studies are conducted in the US and European. Therefore, there's a need for further research in other countries. And so that would go also in the, so it's different from this section where you just seen where it was conducted. These people are physically stating that more research needed to be conducted. And so in this section, you would state, it would go here in the fourth section that. So just distinguish between the difference. This, you're just looking to see what they've done. You look in the abstract. And then you can say, and these studies were done in this country. These studies were done among students. These studies were quantitative. Therefore, this study will do the opposite. Whereas this fourth section is you actually, the study is physically stating that more research is needed. And that you find in the introduction and the limitations and future research sections. And then you extract that information based on the same of these elements, except the difference is now you'll be obviously be fewer studies that stated. So if we go back to this example, then we said these guys recommended that further research be conducted amongst different cohorts. What are you looking at? Different, you're looking at Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X. So therefore, you're fulfilling it. These guys said that more research is required about EWOM, especially the attitudes toward EWOM. So you'll find articles that say more research is needed about South African advertising. And it would go in the fourth section. All of these authors indicate that a student population reduces the generalization, but okay, you're mostly using it. These guys recommend that further research should consider the influence of EWOM using different types of social media platforms. You see how, and all of these summaries came by reading and summarizing each article and extracting that information so that I could write. So your first step is to read journal articles and summarize it so that you can get this information for this section. And then, you know, by just looking at the abstract, and then you read these sections to get people that said more research should be conducted. And then this section, as I said, you just do a search in the databases to see what you can find. And this section you'll mostly get from the internet, and journal articles will just give you an overview and background information. What I do suggest is, remember, every journal article that you read includes this. So if you read, every journal. So the key is to summarize, create your table of contents, and then you can easily do the first section and the research problem by looking for that specific information. What I want to show you is also, so I just wanted to go through that, how I personally preach what I teach. You see, this is just for a journal article, and, you know, I've read all these articles, I summarized it, you know, and then I created a reference list. And this information, actually, a lot of this information didn't come from the original article. It came from someone they mentioned. So it's a secondary resource. So these articles I did not have, but they mentioned these gaps. And then I took the secondary resources. So these are sources that I took out of the articles. And then these are the original articles. And then I have a separate reference list for the original articles. So I'm just showing you that this practical one is only due next term, but it's a lot of work. But if you do this well, remember, the first four sections of this practical one are the same sections in the assignment, your proposal. So in doing practical one, you're working on the assignment at the same time. You see, so it's killing two birds with one stone. So I'm just showing you that it's a lot, and this is quite complex. The practical 2 is, is easy to collect data and send it, but this writing is the difficult part. And if you want to go further in your studies, it's all about this. So now you want to search for articles, and so don't say, so I'm glad I actually had the time to go through that with you. So let's just say you want to search for articles, and I want to go to this library search. Yeah, and we go to this library search. And yeah, I showed you the keywords. I've showed you in detail how to search. So you use social media advertising. Let's just say you do a search and we go to Google Scholar, although I'll search other, we put that in, take that out, and we decide we want to get lucky, and we can open a blank document. We go to this, and we're going to put all of these variables in, the 8 constructs that we're investigating, and we search. Okay, so this is what it's found. And we don't want old, we want, say, custom range 2020 to 2024. So we found a few, the influence of social media values on purchasing intention. Great. So we download this article. I always just copy the title from here. I don't know if it's going to let, oh, it's just thinking about it. Come on, why are you taking so long? But in the interim, you download this article, then immediately I go cite. Oh, there it came. I take their reference list. I open a new document and I go reference list, although you may not use all of these. And I immediately put the article here. And then I change the referencing. This and should be and. I delete this comma, it does not belong. I put the journal in italics. And I make this colon. And there I've got my reference, right, in case. Then you've actually got the journal art. Immediate, yeah. Yeah, but what I do is I'll just show you what I do. So let's just take this article. Here's the article. Now I save this article using its name, right? Now I summarize this article, right? So where's this conducted? It's conducted in Malaysia. So I open my table. Let's just open this. Research proposal guidelines. So then I make a table like this immediately for this article. Once I've got this article, I immediately make this table. So I immediately go, okay, these are the authors. So over here, so I cut and paste these in. So how would you in-text reference this? So I make this there. If you were to in-text reference, it would be this. It. How, full stop. Depends how you do it. If you do it like that, 2, 2, 1. Okay. So I'd make a table. I would insert a table, insert. Let's just make, yeah, insert table, and we want to insert table, and we want 4 columns. How many columns do we want? 5 columns and many rows. I have my table, and you include your headings, and we put this in here. Oops, let's just block it. Easier to work in landscape, but I'm just showing you. Oh, it doesn't want to copy from here, then copy one by one, you know, author and year. Etc. You cut and paste these. Okay, not going to waste the time. Then, oh, let's just go to the time quickly and do it. Then it's there, so you see. So I create this table in landscape is better because you don't have much space to type. I'll show you what I mean by landscape. Main aims related to your findings. And this limitations and research gaps. So that is vitally important for your first thing. And then usually what I do is I go to home, I go to layout, I go to orientation, I make landscape, and then I go to margins and I space the margins out. That's going to be short, and then you can, you know, you can make these bigger, you know, and we just block this and we make the font size quite small. So I go to home, I change this to maybe Calibri, I change it to 10, I go here, I make sure it's single line, single, single. See, now I'm ready to work, and we'll put this first one in bold. And now we're ready to work. So then this is the authors. This is just for your use to bold it. Then we put the in-text reference in here, right? Then I go to the article and I find what is the main. The aim was to understand social media advertising. So I take this in, but I rewrite it in my own words immediately. So the study is aimed by using Dufcote's model, you know. So I immediately do that. And now that you have, wonderful tools like Quillbot, you can go to Paraphrase as well. You can put it in, paste, and you see you have to delete this. This is what you guys are doing with the questionnaires. It kept doing this because you cut and pasted from a PDF. And then you can go Paraphrase. And then the primary goal, and you can change other things of this study. We'll draw out this research is to employ Dufcote's model, social and effects of, and you're happy with that. Then you've already got it rewritten and you put that in. Right. Now you want to see what the main methodology is. So okay, we can close that. So we go to, what the heck is that? Okay. Now we go to the article. Okay, so where was it conducted? Malaysia. So immediately you want to put in that Malaysia there. What else do you want? You want to know main objective, how many it was, 188 participants, questionnaire, survey on Facebook and WhatsApp. So you want to capture all of that information because you're looking at multiple social media. So this could be good for gaps for you. So you immediately in your summary, you put 182 respondents. It was on Facebook. It was quantitative research. See, your sample size is going to be bigger than that. So it's immediately a gap that you quantitative research, right? Survey. So we capture that immediately. Let's get my spelling. Survey. Right. So you got that. Then you go in here, the main objective, exploratory results, find that there's significant relationships between intention to purchase and consumers. So you can, you can say results signifies. So this immediately I just copy this out. I go straight here. You're doing single sources, but later you're going to combine all these sources, you see, into, so immediately I just put it in here and we delete these gaps. Remember, this changes things to American text, so be careful. And we go to paraphrase and we mix it up. And then a strong correlation, intention to buy. We want to keep intention to purchase to purchase. You don't want to change that term. Information, credibility, but they've kept this order the same, so I'll change it overall. So you're happy with that. But this order they've kept the same. So you go in here. Right, and then we're not happy with this, so we move this into a different order, you know. There, because then safer sign won't kill you, so you take the findings, right? So that, you see, this is giving you the information to finish the third part of reading, and now you actually go into the article a bit, and contribution, you're not too worried, credibility is the authors. So it says, the fast evolution of the internet is growing, showed massive increase. Where does this section help you with? You see, every introduction is the same as the background to the research problem. Well, if we go to, what have I got open? If we go to the practical one template, and you look at this section, so you give a background of this, but this says, increase in use among certain use. So can you use this article to write something about this? Can you reference? Yeah, you can say there's massive increase in certain groups, and this article here says there's massive increase. So you reference them. You see, then you read further efforts, still strategies, nonce, blah, blah, blah. Somalia is a country in East Africa and it's bordered Kenya, blah, blah, blah. According to most Somalians, okay, that doesn't really help. So you're trying to extract any other gaps, provides information, cost effective, is brought, trustworthy, hence tremendous interest. However, social media for utilizing a successful many are currently embraced, regardless. Regardless of the expansion, inevitable shortages are revealed in Somalia. What is Somalia? A developing country. So in your research gaps in the fourth section, you can say that, awesome. So the research gap, you can say these authors or awesome. So here you can use, okay, so the research actually wasn't conducted in Malaysia. It was conducted in Somalia. So be careful of that. Sometimes the country the authors are from is different. So you can say, state that there is a research gap among African developing countries. Fix my grammar afterwards. Developing. Where would this section go? It would go in the fourth section because they highlighted the gap. Whereas the fact that it was conducted in Somalia, you can say that there is some research in developing countries such as Somalia. However, this research would be conducted in South Africa. You see, so how you can use this. So we go back. So that's excellent because that's what you want. Somalia's beginning stage, more of the absence, blah, blah, blah. Existing gap, Dafcod model. So also in gaps, you can say other research use Dafcod's model, which you're using to conduct research. However, this research will combine Dafcod's model with the TAM model. So you can use everything. And then, so that you've extracted, then you go, never mind about the findings, you know, they've only used Dovecot. You can go down, and now you want to look at their limitations. So all hypotheses over studies encounter. Firstly, the study is only conducted in difficult to generalize, so that findings of the study to other countries, therefore research should be conducted in other countries. Perfect. So then not only are they saying, so this you can go then and put, go to your table and say, awesome, you know, just say the state said studies should be conducted in other countries. You don't need to worry, because this you're going to combine. You're not going to use this text. You're going to put, you're just going to make one line, and then you're going to give me 10 references that say, these studies say research on social media advertising should be, you can even write that down now. The following studies state that research should be conducted in other countries, and this research did it. So you see there, it's giving you a perfect, and that's for this fourth section, where they say there's a mandate for more research. And that's what I mean by mandate. They're telling you more research is necessary. So that's, I mean, you see how much you can get from one article. And it's quick. You just look at the abstract, the title, what the main findings were, which will be useful later, and then you go to the limitations section. That's all you're gleaning from it. Similarly, the study just limited to social, or other studies should look at social media ads, so you're not doing that. Another limitation is no specific product. So you can say that several studies stated that there's no product or industry, whereas your study is going to be looking at, look at your questionnaire, you've got multiple industries. So this is another gap you could take. The same. So you can just take this out, go here, and if you look at your questionnaire, you can paraphrase it already, but you won't say. Then in that fourth section, you'd say several studies noted that more research is necessary across different industries, and you would in-text reference all of those studies. You wouldn't give any more detail. And if you look at this practical one template, different industries. You see how I've already identified the areas for you. You just need to find studies that state this. And then finally, the study focused on Facebook. Future studies should look at other platforms. What are you doing? What gap did I identify? Use different platforms. So, and then it's actually a good article. What's this article called? Influence on, yeah. Well, I've got it in my downloads. I will actually just, what I do is I'll go copy, we'll open it, and we'll just save it somewhere because it's a good teaching tool. We'll just dump it under journal articles, and I'll just save it like this. You see, influence, yeah, we'll just save it like that. There it is. So I've got it. So now we're done with that article. How long did it take to go through that article? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? And you do that for 50 articles. Take you a day, and you extract all the information out. And then you could also, for later on, you could look at you'll need it later. You keep these, then the literature, you need information on the different constructs. You need information on entertainment and intention to purchase for your later assignments. You'll see the literature review. I'm going to discuss that next week. What happens after practical one? I'm going to show you. And then you can extract all of this information. You can take out and summarize and place under the headings of the template for assignment one, and paraphrase it and mix it with other sources, and already get the references. So if you steal this information from here, then you've also, remember, got to include this source, Sharif, you see, like I showed you. And then ultimately, you just summarize each article. You can take other information like secondary resources. I usually include above. If you take other information and you put headings here, then I put it and I take those references, and the original references I list below. And this is what you're doing for each article. You see how one article gives you so much information. If you do 50 of those articles, you'll get a very good mark for this assessment. 50 articles is 2 pages of references. And you get the referencing right. And then you go to, you know, close that. Then we go to the next article here. It is segmenting consumers, social media perceptions. And you click on this. And then you can view PDF. This one you can download CPT and you do the same. You take out what's relevant and you summarize. And once you've summarized all of that and you got your information, then you're ready to write. And once you write, I'll just show you, for example, from say a master thesis. If I show you Mashlali's thesis, you'll see what it looks like. So here's her download thesis. So this introduction doesn't count. You have it here, but here's a background to the research problem. So you can see she's given you an overview of all the different topics with lots of references, right? Look how many references she has. That's the first section. Look how many number of studies show that symbolic language is growing. So you can say a number of studies have shown that social media advertising is growing. But how do you know which studies they are? You need to have gone through all those articles that say that. And then the research necessity, why it's important. See all the authors summarized. Following the same format, research gaps. So here in global perspective, a number of studies were conducted and emojis convey meaning. So she referenced, which provided the basis for the study. Some research was conducted on the nature. Look how many studies. There was a gap in understanding the use of these studies. However, this study does not address the role that plays. And then several studies in terms of engagement, while other research explored purchase intention. However, none of these studies considered both engagement and intention to purchase. Future research said that there should be larger sample sizes. Additional research on the sender and respondents are required amongst different groups and cultures. So a lot of studies will say that more research is necessary amongst different cultures. Is South Africa a different culture? And has? Yes. So that's another gap you could use. Several studies used to enhance this. And you see what you just say what other studies have done, and then you say what your study will do. And then it just carries on and on. Look at the references. How many references? And this is the first few pages. You know, and how did you, and then it goes to the problem statement. So looking at thesis is good. And as I say, I mean, if you go through the reference list I showed you yesterday, another thesis, and then, you know, her reference list starts on page 208. And we just go down and down and down and down and down and down, all the way to page 242. You know, and all just correctly done, using the exact format you can see that I've given you. And this is what you do in master's and doctorate, and even next year, you're going to be doing this. So what I'm showing you now is I'm giving you a topic. I'm saying this is how you extract information, you know, so create it, summarize each article, extract the information you need. Do this first for all the articles. Then you're ready to write. So you know you need information on, you know, an overview. So each article is going to give you information on social media. Get some stats and figures, but get the latest stats. So don't take stats on social media from a journal article, because when a journal article is published, it's already 2-3 years old. Even though it says 2024, the stats will be old. There you go to Internet Statistica, Internet Worldwide Stats, and the sources I gave you in the subject. But these other types of things you can get from journal articles. So while you're going through it, extract information from their introductions. And here, when you search, then you can actually, when you go and search, you can say Sabinet revealed these studies on social media advertising, but this is how they differed. Every study on social media advertising will say how fast it's growing. So make a note each time a study says it's growing fast. Summarize that. So when you write and say these There is extremely fast growing of different social media platforms, especially platforms like TikTok. You in-text reference those articles. Facebook, social media in general, you in-text reference like 20, 30 studies. That will impress me, you know. And then increase in use. We saw that article said certain groups are increasing. So you captured the gaps. I've showed you now how to get that by reading the abstract and then reading the introduction limitations where they say more research is necessary. And you just summarize that so that when you write this is easy. The statement of the research problem is not so difficult because here, instead of using lots of sources, now you look at individual sources. So in this summary here, you would say, you know, this study specifically states there's a need for more research in different countries, you see, and then you give another study, another separate studies. You don't combine them. So you give more detailed information about studies in the research problem than just listing 20 studies. You actually extract the information you need. Yeah, so it says more individual research gaps using more individual references, giving much greater detail than the background to the research problem. And you look at the introduction and limitation section like above, and then you summarize your problem statement at the end. You know, this study used the advertising value model and technological acceptance model, specifically looking at social media advertising, considering various products across different cohorts in Cape Town and South Africa, which is, as mentioned by the above, research gaps requires further research. Full stop, that's your research problem. You'd end off with that. And then you'd give your aims and objectives, which are given. I just said you have to adapt it just according to who you interviewed and where your study was conducted. And then you would give your reference list and you would attach your 25 articles, the first page. Have you got more insight into practical one now as to what to do? Yeah, you got to watch the videos though, yeah, because you didn't hear the other, he's up to date. So you think that will help? Obviously, you got to watch all the videos now. And when you watch this one, I think once you wouldn't understand it then, but now that I've shown you how to reference, how you find each source, you summarize it, you reference, you extract the information you need, do that for 50 articles, and then you can now actually write the practical. Go and look at theses. Each thesis shows you, has these sections. Each journal article's introduction is this, you know, is the same as what you're doing. So you've got examples, but just different formats. So it's a lot of work, but I'm glad I had this session with you because I'll also make it available on video to everyone. And it gives you, and you're doing the same, this work you're doing is also for your assignment 1, part 1, the proposal. So these 4 sections go there, but then you extract, then you've got to include literature and methodology. Then you can also get it from these articles. So all the work you do now is also for future assessments. Yeah, so I'm really taking you guys to the next level. And then if you do PG DIP, this is what you're going to be doing. Exact same thing, but your own topic. And that's what makes it hard. I made it easy. I've given you the topic. I've given you what you're looking for. But it's the same things, even if it's your own topic. If we go here, if we go back to this practical one template, you're going to include this. But if I go here, it's just your topic. You take the main parts out. It's going to be the same type of things here that you're going to use. It's the same type of gaps and mandate for me research. And it's the same problem statement just for your topic. So this is a formula that I use for my master students and doctoral students. It's generic though, so you can use it for any topic. Okay, so we'll see how you go. Look, your practical 1, the marks are never good for that. But the practical 2, the marks are excellent. People get 100% for their data collection. So I've made this weight 10%, and I made the data collection 15% because I know you do better at that, you see. But by the time you get to the research proposal part, which I think counts 15%, then you are better already and you do better at that because you've learned from, you know, the first one. So, yeah. And so you can see our referencing fits hand in hand as well. How you put the in-text reference ready for use, and you capture your references as you go along. And if you take other references from this source, then if you take other references from that source, then immediately if we go back to that journal article that I just took. So just to show you one more thing. That, and where did I put that article? Here we go. Oh, not that one. Date modified. Yeah, here's the article. So say you using this article and there's a fast evolution and you have a company, and you want to use this source, and say you take this source and you use it somewhere, then you got to go to their reference list and find it. This source here. This one, or was, yeah, let's just say it was this one you took, and you take this source, and I don't put it here because this is the original article. If I take other information, say for my literature review or whatever, or other gaps or whatever, and if I've taken a source, then I put it above my table. And then, you have to adapt it to CPUT style. So you see they've got a comma there, you delete it, you got to delete spaces for 2 initials, you remove these brackets, you put this in italics, and they don't have the volume or issue or page numbers. So we take this source immediately and we go and find the original source then. We stick it into Google Scholar, we go paste, we go there. Here's the original source, we go cite. You see now they've got all of that we need. So we rather take it from here, not them, because they make mistakes in their reference list. But Google Scholar also does, but they're a bit more accurate. And now we go in here, and they've given the DOL, we put this here. And now we can just fix it. We remove those page numbers. We make this an and we delete this comma, and we put that in italics. And now we can write whatever we want, so it would be this et al, open brackets, what is it, 2021, page numbers, states, whatever. You see, so the sources you take from other journals, you always cite the original author. You can also add in this as well, because if he added his own voice, then you can say, and state. I didn't include the page numbers. I need to include the page numbers. Yes, come in. You can sit down so long, we're nearly done. Yeah. That, and then you would put the page numbers here. And states. So you'd give both the original sources. Okay. I think you're a bit shell-shocked after all that, but I think it's really given you insight, for you especially. But once you watch all the videos, you'll know what you're doing. Okay, and that's how you summarize all your articles, reference it immediately. Then you can transfer to your practical one and do your background to your research problem and problem statement. These guys are doing it at PG Dip now. We've had a session with them, so I'm teaching you now already. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you next week. You can just leave the cups and I'll wash them for you. Just want to stop the recordings quickly.
See you next week.
Good, we'll see you next week, guys. Stop recording.
See you, man.
Stop. And